calm, balance, ease, stillness, peace. Why on earth would you want to think like a monk, and why would I want to think like a monk? If you had told me this 4 years ago, I would have been like, man, you're crazy. Why would I want to listen to these guys who sit down and do nothing the whole day and just go, But there is so much more to it, and their whole job is around mastering the mind that they have. And Shetty, if you don't know who he is a master content creator, storyteller, and holds one of the best podcasts within the health spectre, where he combines ancient wisdom and modern day science together, and how they interweave and how we can use them on a practical basis during our day to make and enhance our lives. So during this video, I'm going to share with you some of the major insights I took from his book, Think Like a Monk. Firstly, make your mind your friend. This one sounds so simple, but it was so underrated, and just the way he explained it just brought things together. There was this ancient samurai saying that they used to repeat to themselves, especially in times of struggle, in times of toughness, and in times of pain, which was, make my mind my friend. As we often talk to ourselves in nasty ways, especially when things aren't going well or when we feel like we haven't accomplished what we need to. But why do we do it? A lot of the time it's pointless and it doesn't get us to where we want to go. It's just this knee-jerk conditioned reaction within our mind about how we must talk to ourselves. A great litmus test in this is what are the first things you say to yourself when you look at yourself in the mirror? Or what are the first things that happen when you make a mistake? Do you straight away go to, oh, I look ugly, I'm not going to look good today, like look at that big pimple on my head, like what am I doing, everyone's going to be embarrassed by me, what am I even doing here? Like, those are the sort of voices that some of us have in our head, and I've had in my head during certain periods. It's like this enemy and this friend in your mind. So Jay just said we have to be really proactive with cultivating the friend in our brain. As imagine you're talking to yourself and he likes to reverse the golden rule. So the golden rule is do unto others as you would do unto yourself. So what he says is we actually need to reverse that. Talk to yourself like you would a compassionate friend. A compassionate friend, if you failed the test or didn't do well in what you're doing, didn't get the job that you were after, wouldn't go, man, you're useless, you're never going to get it, like who do you think you are? But our mind sometimes does that to us, or it's been conditioned to do it to us. So we can flip that script. So one of the ancient samurai sayings was, make my mind my friend. So often he says when he was going through a tough time or transitioning through what he was doing, or when he was $25,000 in debt, he would remind himself to make my mind my friend on a daily basis. It became like his motto that he would repeat to himself, make my mind my friend. And I just thought this was awesome to keep in mind, as they often ask us when we go to school, like, who do you want to be when you're older? What do you want to do? But it's like, who do you want, not what you want to do, what you want to be. And what I wish I told 18-year-old Liam was, mate, I want to be your best friend. As if you're your best friend, then you're going to support yourself along the way, and then you're just going to have a greater sense of happiness within that. Find new in the old. We all have routines in our life, either unconscious or conscious. And these routines can become monotonous, even if we like the routine and we know the routine's good for us. So one of the suggestions that Jay has, which he learned from being a monk, is one of the exercises they would do is they would go down the same path every day, and when they were going down their path, they were given the exercise of having to pick up something new, whether it was a blade of grass, a pebble, a flower, and they couldn't think about stuff they had seen before. Every day they had to pick or find a new thing. Say I couldn't go the day before and think, oh, I've got 2 pebbles, I'm going to save 1 pebble for tomorrow, and say it was the new pebble. I had to really use my mind to find an element within my surroundings that were new. And I love this, as I often feel sometimes bogged down by a routine, but to keep the routine fresh, you can realize it's never actually the same routine, and you can always find something new and something novel within your surroundings. Humility is the elixir for the ego. The ego doesn't want what's right, it wants to be right above what everyone else thinks. The ego doesn't want to be better, it wants to be perceived as being better. And I could sit here or stand here all high and mighty and saying I don't have an ego, but everyone has an ego. And what Jay says is this: just be aware of it constantly and notice throughout your day when you constantly want to be perceived as being better or being perceived as being something that you're not, as that builds a false sense of self and confidence, which ultimately crashes in the end. Which is often why, say, if an athlete or a celebrity goes so high in what they're doing and they see themselves as almost like above the rest and a god above everyone else, then when they crash or they fail, then they're shocked that they can actually do that, and then it has a downward spiral. See, the ego presents an inflated sense of self and a deflated sense of self. It balances itself on both extremes, whereas humility is within that middle ground between the two. Humility also keeps us open to learning new things and being open to other people's ideas and perceptions around the world, which keeps things fun and engaging. And a story that Jay told was with a firefly. You see, a firefly at night shines so bright compared to everything else, but during the day when the sun comes out, it can feel insignificant. And this is just a reminder, when we think we're that firefly, there's always a sun around the corner, and we can always learn and be open to being just a drop within the ocean. The monks trained humility through doing mundane chores and just like mopping stuff or doing the dishes or whatever it was. They were never above those activities. And I definitely have felt above doing the dishes or washing something before, but the way Jay explained it, which blew my mind, is that when we're doing the dishes, we're not present during the dishes. We're sort of hoping and wishing that we were just out of there, you know? And he explained this in terms of our work as well. Often when we're doing work, we're fantasizing about some holiday. And then when we're on holiday, we can't really appreciate the holiday because we feel like we need to be working. So this ability to switch on within even the mundane chores and just be there and just accept it and realize you're not above it can be so useful in navigating that space and keeping you grounded and humble. One of Jay's teachers shared with him this little phrase to keep humility at the forefront of his mind. Remember the good others have done to you. Remember the bad you have done to others. Forget the bad others have done to you, and forget the good you have done to others. I was slightly confused when I heard this, as I was like, I kind of want to remember the good that I've done to others, as I want to make my mind my friend. Jay, what do you mean? But the further I heard him talk about it, the greater I understood it. Is often when we give something, we feel an obligation for that person to give something back, and that's not really giving. That's giving, that's contractual giving. That's, I'm going to give this to you and I hope you give something back to me, as opposed to I'm just going to give to you for the sake of giving it. And obviously this is an ideal, and I still catch myself in this loop sometimes, but when you just give for the sake of giving, that's when true service is in action. Another one of the ways that Jay looks at humility is he looks at it from a student and a teacher perspective. We are both simultaneously the whole time. And when I think about it, this really made sense to me, as we can, I guess, always learn and always teach someone something. We always have value and we can always gain value. So, and I thought about the teachers that I've had in my life, and maybe think about the teachers you've had in your life. And the ones that have been the best is when they sort of open to your ideas and opinions, and they sort of tailor it to you, but they also give their expertise or confidence or skill within that area. And you both learning and growing sort of together, and this has helped me keep this in mind, and I really want to remember it, because sometimes leadership or teaching can just be too authoritarian. And often when I'm coaching or whatever, sometimes I feel like I need to know the answer for what's going on. But sometimes it's just, I'm continually learning along that process as well. And that also keeps things exciting and new. So just this, you're constantly the teacher and the student within an interaction or whatever's going on, just helps keep you grounded and humble. Like, I don't have to know everything to teach someone something. I can learn from them as well. It's this mutual exchange and balance. How to mindfully complain. See, there's a lot of complaints that go on throughout the day, and if you're constantly complaining, you get stuck in this negative loop or spiral. And you can often see, if you put two people in the same situation, you'll see one person who's happy with it and one person who complains and is bitter about it. And often it's just an emotional addiction that we have to that certain feeling. So one of the things that Jay suggests is we learn how to mindfully complain. So we don't want to just ignore all our problems and never acknowledge them, but we want to see them in a proactive light. So one of the things that he recommends is you literally brain dump all of your, worries unfiltered, your fears, whatever it is, on that piece of paper. And you don't try to solve it at first. And then what you do is you try and see it from an objective point of view, from a friend's perspective, from a coach or someone you admire, and then try and look at and analyze your situation through that lens. But it's really important at the start to just let it out and unfiltered vent onto that piece of paper. And why this is so powerful is, imagine when you're talking to a friend, you can often look at their situation, say they're complaining or they're having a tough time or a tough day. You have empathy and you look at it, but you go, that isn't even that bad. Why are you complaining? Because you don't have that emotional sting or that emotional attachment to it. And what that does is, when you brain dump it, it gives you a more objective light through looking at your issues or your problems. And it helps remove that emotional sting. As I'm sure even when you've spoken to a friend, like once you've had that chat and you let out what you need to let out, then and they bounce back some ideas and some advice, you're like, why didn't I know that all along? I kind of know that. But it's just that when we're in that loop, that self-destructive or that repetitive negative cycle or story that we're playing in our mind, once you actually get it out on paper, then it helps you see it from that objective point of view and move to a solution-orientated mindset. So just to recap, some of the major insights taken away were: make your mind your friend. Secondly, find new in the old routines. Thirdly, remember, humility is the elixir for ego. Whether you're feeling too high or too low, humility is that great middle ground. And lastly, remember how to mindfully complain and get to the solution you're after, as opposed to just getting stuck in that rut. So I'd just like to give a warm thank you to Jay. I'm so grateful for the work that you put out. It is awesome and it has really helped me. And I know this is just a tip of the iceberg of the book. So if you want to check the book out, I'll leave a link below. I don't get any money from it. I just love the work and the messages that he puts out there. Until next time, remember, uncover your truth.